Okay, so let's, Paul, if you can come. I've got your presentation open here, so I'm just going to click on that. Paul's just going to give an update on the Data Science Academy, and there is the slides.
All to you, back to you. Excellent. Thanks, Jacques. So for those of you who weren't here last month, I thought I'd just give a quick background about the Data Science Academy and what it's all about, and then provide an update on where we are currently. So I'm sure a lot of you have realized that, I mean, I noticed it particularly over the last year in particular, that the data science has moved from people just talking about it, reading about it, to really much in the business mainstream nowadays. So business is actually doing it, they're making big investments in it. And this is all great. I mean, it's going to drive innovation, and it's really fantastic, but it's leading to a massive skills gap now in the entire chain. So everybody we've been talking to, companies are asking for skills. Where do we find skills? How do we train our skills? And even people working in the field are asking, how do we keep up to date with the latest technologies? And so Jacques and I we connected probably about 2 months ago, and we both shared similar sort of stories and similar sort of vision. And we decided to found a data science academy that will solve these particular issues for corporates and for technologists in the business. So just in terms of what we'll be doing, we're going to be offering courses across the whole spectrum. So we're going to be offering at the C-suite level. So for a senior executive who doesn't know anything about data science but wants to hold an intelligent conversation with his or her techie team. IT professionals, so people that want to upskill in a new technology or a new AI model or methodology. So very deep subject matter expertise. Sort of five-day type courses. And then we're also going to be offering, and this is something that I'm quite excited about, is actually internship programs for corporates as well. And with that in mind, we started approaching corporates over the last month just to gauge interest, to see firstly what their needs are, particularly what technology stack they're standardizing on, what technologies they're interested in, where they're going to be investing in the next year. And then just to gauge interest whether they'd be interested in sitting their staff, sitting themselves, or actually running internship programs for data scientists. So the response has actually been really, really great. So we first reached out to the MIIA community, and we had meetings with a few people in the community, about 5 or 6, who gave input on what they felt the ideal curriculum should look like based on their knowledge and their experience in the field and what they're actually working on currently. And then we've met with 10 corporates over the last month now, from retail, the TMT, so technology, media, telecommunications, and then financial services sectors. And across the board, great interest. One of the companies actually expressed a lot of interest, but we're sort of in a situation now to make this work. We would probably need 2 or 3 corporates to come on board to make these economies of scale, sort of justified for the corporates. So we've set up another 3 meetings in the new year. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't the best. So as you all imagine, the budgeting decisions and everything else will happen in the new year. But we have got one person very interested, and very interesting. And Jacques mentioned in the beginning, all the corporates are standardizing on open source technology. So they really are looking at your Pythons, your PySparks, and that's, I mean, it's license fees aren't there. You can do pretty much exactly what you can with the licensed technologies. So that's formed our thinking about how we're going to actually start constructing the curriculum. And now Jacques and I have put a very high level structure together around what the curriculum will look like, but it's very much based around the Pius box, Jupyter notebooks, the technologies that the corporates actually mentioned, and the community that we spoke to. And we will hopefully be launching our first course at the end of January next year. So just there at the end there, so we just really want to connect with as many people as possible, just to try and make sure that we're on the right path from a needs perspective. We want to make everything as practical and relevant as it can be, and so just invite you to sign up there. We'll keep you keep you up to date with all our progress as we go along, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks,
Paul. Pius, you end off with humanity, hardware for humanity. So you need this one. Almost there. Food and drinks, beer.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jacques, for the opportunity, and welcome guys to the LaunchLab. How many of you have been here before? Have you ever had the opportunity to be? Okay. For those who are here for the first time, we're a business, incubator that is trying to accelerate the way entrepreneurship and innovation is done, with an African focus. So we're currently on about 8, universities in the Western Cape, and we try to stimulate,
No, it's fine. You can understand that capturing. No, it's fine. We can hear you. We're just recording, so if you can maybe stand this side, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're trying to, stimulate the entrepreneurial culture in Africa to build a proper ecosystem. And the Hardware for Humanity project is just something that we're trying to experiment with for next year, to build that culture of, problem solving, tangible problem solving, and not just, vague problem solving or approaches, that are vague, that are not impactful, at any level. I just want to share this quote with you. It's about engaging the mind. How do you talk about solving problems without first looking at, a way to engage the mind in problem solving? Just to read it out, our species needs and deserve a citizenry with minds wide awake and a basic understanding of how the world works. In sub-Saharan Africa, most people are detached, from that understanding of how the world truly works. And for me, I am very passionate about seeing us play a very specifically tangible role with the Industrial Revolution. But you cannot play when the whole of the continent is largely detached, from the realities of, the 18th century. Bulk of the continent is still in darkness. We haven't even, we don't even have a single, say, world-class, industry that is able to compete with, say, maybe the Intels and the HPs of this world. There's nothing of such that is of African origin, and you cannot talk about changing the way Africans, play with the rest of the world without talking about changing the way young Africans think. So one might want to think that there is a lot of hopelessness in the air. There is still a little bit of hope, and that hope lies with the younger generation, the millennials. So for me, I can confidently say that I am in a position where I want to give everything to see that the younger generation behind, gets to come to terms with what the reality is, which is the reality of, creating value, and how do you create value? You create value from generating idea or ideation, and that transfers to organizing that idea, and that also grows into intellectual convergence of that idea into what can be an application, of value all around. And that can potentially lift people from the lower class to at least the middle class, and if you've got value that I'm looking for, I can afford it, and I pay for that value. And I mean, it's just going to be that exchange of resources, that grows, societies and communities. Because the reason Africa is still in pain and in hunger is because a lot of people are not using their imagination to its full potential. I mean, if you come to a place like Stellenbosch, you can come to a place like Stellenbosch University and you see that things still work. He was just telling me earlier how the municipalities differ, in terms of how they appreciate innovation and forward thinking, and that is the only way we can have prosperity. That's the only way we can have, sustainability and growth, as a continent. So the Hardware for Humanity project is something that is, it's just that opportunity that the continent, has been longing for, to be able to bring a critical mass of young people together, give them a lot of resources and a lot of tools to be able to solve real world problems, and be able to create value not just for Africa, but for the rest of the world. Just to run you through, you might have run into this this slide a couple of times. I was saying earlier, this is where Africa is still not even playing. We're not here yet, And by Africa, I don't mean the crop of Caucasian communities that are owning businesses and are selling those businesses to, customers overseas. I mean the guy in Kenya and the guy in rural Rwanda, who's got no opportunity to, power his farm with any form of energy, not even cattle. He's got to do that labor very manually. Where I come from, they used to say that there is dignity in labor, manual labor. But I mean, gone are those days now. If you've got a sort of aided intelligence or technology that can help you solve your problems, then you can accelerate your contribution and you can increase your contribution by setting a vision and dictating higher, tasks and responsibilities for that technology to solve, and that is what the Machine Institute of Africa is all about. That is what the LaunchLab is all about, and that's why we're gathered here today. So the imagination needs to be unlocked in young Africans, and I think, MIIA is on the right track to actualizing that. And I mean, I'm here all the way from Nigeria in the LaunchLab today because I believe the LaunchLab has also got the opportunity and the potential to unlock the minds of very young Africans on the continent, So this is just a slide that I'm also very passionate about. There was a time where the new kid on the block was agriculture, and the work ethics that followed, and that consistency and that growth and that build-up and that sustainability, a sort of a cultural evolution, as people like Jacob Bernowski will want to classify it, is what has pushed our civilization forward. And after the Renaissance, when another new wave of thinking emerged, and even from the Renaissance to the point, of Industrial Revolution, the focus of man shifted from just tool and agriculture and wheat farming to something more tangible. The scientific discoveries, discovery rare elements that led to, or that leads, to creations of massive, technological leaps like the computers that we had, from silicon, for instance, and not just agriculture anymore, but the use of that rare element in our natural world to create things that can make our lives better, is what has really given us that credibility and that confidence to push forward. And just to read that for you, rare elements are a series of chemical elements found in Earth's crust that are valid to many modern technologies, including consumer electronics, computers and networks, communications, clean energy, advanced transportation, healthcare, environmental mitigation, national defense, and many others. It is found everywhere. And the reason I'm showing you this slide is because in Africa today, there is no indigenous company that manufactures, vehicles. It's either mass produced, it's either assembled here, it's either assembled here or imported from Europe and Asia. And I mean, we read about China every day. The reason China is on top of the rest of the world is because they were able to combine the milestones of the first, second, and third industrial revolution to push themselves to be competitors with other first world countries. That's the difference between China and the rest of the world. And they had a little bit of icing on the cake, and that icing was the fact that they could sell internally and even, grow the economy locally because they are over 1 billion people. That's the difference between China and any other third world, economy. The fact that they really, really were serious about changing the way. I mean, I go on the streets, on Dub streets everywhere, and I see Chinese tourists. That was impossible in the 60s, even though I wasn't born then. But I mean, lives can change if you look well within your physical environment and you stimulate yourself with the rare elements that are in your physical environment. And I mean, we need to be able to get to the point where we give our lives for the next generation, so that because we're a species that is very powerful at recording our behaviors, and recording the things we learn as we behave, leaving a lot of data, for the next generation to mine that data and make use of that data positively. We can do, everything that we're set out to do. We can really leave a very colorful legacy for the next generation to inherit, and that's why I'm very passionate about this. Just to show you that the cell phone you're carrying in your pocket is also made with various rare elements, components. But people don't know about this. The young generation doesn't know about it. Our educational system does not emphasize on how valuable, the tangible aspect of productivity and creation is. How you can really, really put food on one table, and not just one table, but 100 tables. Yeah. So for Africa, the focus is really, really on education and skills development. I didn't say education or education alone. I didn't say knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It is knowledge for the sake of impact. How much do you know, and what problem can you use your knowledge to solve? And also the second would be building sustainable governance system. It's so painful that indigenous African companies try to push, they try to grow, and they try to stay sustainable, and one policy just comes and it cripples everything. We need to be able to train the young generation to be able to create, a thriving ecosystem for everybody, both the business leader and the political leader. And I mean, technology can pretty much solve most of our problems. All we need is just a stable climate to be able to create these technologies. And delivering hard infrastructure. I mean, South Africa is one of the only countries in Africa where you can drive for 100 yards without potholes, for instance. So if that is the case, if cars are not manufactured in Africa, and you have to go to the mechanic every weekend to change your tires and all of that, the little disposable income that is available goes into the servicing of that car, or goes into the importation of technology from overseas into Africa to improve the condition of that vehicle that you probably have used all of your life savings to acquire. All of these things needs to be in place before we can compete with China in the industrial age, in the fourth industrial revolution. So it looks very difficult, but it is doable. We can get to that point where Africa can conveniently leapfrog the rest of the world. So for me personally, through the LaunchLab, the Hardware for Humanity project is something that I hope to launch in 2017 with the help of Jacques, where we create an environment where people from all over the world, I call them top scholars from all over the world. I mean, we've been able to start relationship with 2 universities now, one in Netherlands, Utrecht, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, West Carolina University in the United States, and they want to send young, brilliant problem solvers to come to Stellenbosch and to come to South Africa to spend a period of time, learning about the business ecosystem, learning about the innovations ecosystem, and collaborating with local, South Africans to deliver hardcore, solutions. So they bring their own perspective and merge it with the local perspective and trying to solve problems, and most of them would be in the position where they can choose to either commit the rest of their life or some years of their development into trying to solve those problems. And if we get a lot of support, we can begin to set up what I like to call crown hotspots in Africa, where those young scholars can physically and tangibly spend time and say maybe drive a project around building a solar farm for a community. I see it as a way of unlocking the overseas venture capitalist market, where if they know about a problem that needs solving and there is a business potential in that kind of a relationship, they can come, not bring in technology from outside, but come from outside and build the technology locally. And if it fits a profile internationally, they can take that developed product from Africa overseas. And that way we can begin to maybe attract some foreign exchange into Africa, or we can begin to play with the rest of the world. But that second perspective is needed, and that's why the young scholars that we're trying to bring over here are very important. So if we do it right and we follow the model that we have at HATS, and on paper, we'll be able to solve real tangible problems and bring young Africans that are previously in the dark, into the light, with the Hardware for Humanity program. So that's just the workflow, the entrepreneurship, innovation, and future trends, aspects of human potential development, because you can go nowhere without understanding the capabilities you carry as a human being, and these are just all of the things that we want to focus on. I'm a little bit ambitious to say that we want to start in January of 2017, like fully having that engagement, but I mean, it's flexible. We can always modify depending on how quickly we're able to set our structures in place, and that's just the final part of the workflow. Just to tell you that, I mean, with the power of the mobile phone technology, some African economies and some African states and some parts of the continent are already, doing well. Everybody knows about the M-Pesa story in Kenya. It's with the operating system that everybody carries in their pockets, and I mean, a lot of people on the continent are getting connectivity every day, and it means the access to relevant information, relevant knowledge, and relevant methods of problem solving is getting the people who are learning how to use their mobile technology to bank, as you can see on this slide. And there's this big disruption of the financial industry happening, So with maybe advanced technology like the blockchain technology and all of that's coming in place, and with a little bit of education that is required to get people to be able to do a lot of things on the cloud and not really need a third party and not really spend a lot of time and money. I think there's hope for the next generation. They can really get to that point where they can be at the same level, they can really save a little bit of their disposable income. They can really learn not to waste time and conserve time and really, reach all of their life's potential, because, I mean, everything we're seated here to do today is all about enhancing the human, civilization and broadening the human experience, So I hope to continue communicating and, chatting with everybody here to see how you can play a role in enhancing what we're trying to do with the Hardware for Humanity project. I just want to play one video, of an MIT student, David Senge is his name. He's doing his PhD in MIT, and he came up with a solution for his native Sierra Leone. He was privileged to get a scholarship, to study at MIT. And he was able to create a solution that is relevant, that is practical, and that is tailor-made for his native home in Sierra Leone. So just spend the next 4 minutes watching it. Thanks for your time.
trying to think about whether I wanted to go to graduate school or not, and I got to meet with Professor Hugh Herr at the MIT MIIA lab, who's my advisor, and he's a double amputee himself. He described to me a problem that he was having, which was that his prosthetic sockets were always uncomfortable. It turned out that it's the same problem that people in Sierra Leone who were amputees also faced. And it was an interesting problem for me to solve because it had a global relevance and a local relevance to Sierra Leone as well. And I wanted to do something that will help enable people's lives globally. And more importantly, people who I knew who were amputees in Sierra Leone. This is the prosthetic socket that's made from a 3D printer, right? And you can see here each color is a different material, and you can press and it's flexible. And this is stiff. And the idea is that we are using data from the human body, right? So you imagine the leg goes in here, and where it's soft is where the bony areas are, and where it's hard is where there's soft tissue. And so we are getting multi-material designs to relieve pressure over the bony protrusions to reduce the strains on the body, such that the person doesn't have pressure sores and the person doesn't have blisters and the person is much more comfortable. That's really all what we want, because if the patient is comfortable, they will do more, they will work more, they are much more healthier, stay out of the hospital and be happy, normal citizens. Personally, wearing this has been a real honor, and I was drawn to it because the people who were previous winners were awesome, cool people, but also they were doing stuff that mattered to the world. I have been in contact with a bunch of media. I have more directly spoken to people who wanted to help me expand the work that we do in Sierra Leone and in other communities. We've engaged with people from the Boston area who want to support this work. I also run a series of national high school innovation competitions in Sierra Leone, Kenya, and South Africa. So I was excited about being part of this network of people who, on one part, were thinking about the problems as inventors themselves, but on a significant level, they cared about how you enable other young people to think that way and to problem solve and to hack and to design. It's interesting because the young people in Sierra Leone who we work with recently started thinking about themselves as part of the invention generation. So I'm supporting that and pushing them to think that way. You know, they're part of a new wave of young people who think that the problems in Sierra Leone aren't meant to be solved by others, but they themselves can think about them. You know, they themselves can be creative, they themselves can take an action and solve them. I think it's important that with the resources that we have access to, we're able to think about problems that have global implications and problems that touch us personally, problems that will make somebody who we know's life slightly better.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Pius. That was awesome. That was a really good, nice presentation. Okay, I think we're done. So there's drinks around the corner in the kitchen. There is food, snacks there. There's some water still there. There's some wine glasses and wine there. So we're done. So let's just socialize and chat and so forth. Thank you very much. Cheers.